Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for October 26th. Today I'm going to talk about Asmoday Canada, Watson and Holmes, expansions for Mansions of Madness and Agricola, as well as the Kickstarter for Bluebeard's Bride. Let's get to it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. You can support me on Patreon, which is how this whole thing happens, so thank you very much to those who are already supporting me, and if you're interested, go ahead and click the link. It'll take you to my Patreon site, where you can get some exclusive goodies and stuff like that, so check that out if that interests you. Alright, on to board game news. Asmoday has officially acquired F2Z Entertainment now. So Asmoday, I talked about this a couple months ago where they were in talks about this. It seems like it's officially happened now. So that means Asmoday now owns Z-Man, Pretzel Games, and Plaid Hat Games that were under the F2Z umbrella. F2Z was kind of the main sort of competitor to Asmoday in that it was another company buying up smaller companies, or at the time when it bought Z-Man, bigger companies, to kind of have this large studio. So now that's been purchased by Asmoday, and that is going to be Asmoday Canada. So when Asmoday acquired Fantasy Flight Games a year or two ago, that became Asmoday North America. That's kind of the hub where this is. F2Z is located in Canada, mostly. So that is now the Canadian hub. So it certainly makes sense from a business standpoint for Asmoday. But I don't know if it's good for the consumer. That being said, so there's all this talk about this is bad, blah, blah, blah. Really, I don't think it's that big a deal. It could wind up being a very big deal because Asmoday is owned by a parent company that has the majority stock holding. So if they decide to liquidate or something to get a quick buck, obviously that would be a huge hit to the hobby community. But at the end of the day, the hobby game community are the people who play the games and not the people who make the games. There are always going to be people making good games, whether or not that's Asmoday or elsewhere. If something happened with Asmoday, it would leave a void in the community that someone else would fill. So, it might mean that you're paying a little bit more for the games that you want to play. It might mean that you have to put up with a Star Wars license being put on something you don't necessarily want. But at the end of the day, this is what happens when the hobby gets popular, and we all have been saying that we want that. And it allows for things like Mechs versus Minions, which a lot of people were excited about. A huge, crazy, huge game from a giant company. So, all in all, it's certainly a big deal, but, I think the hobby will go on and we'll all keep breathing and it'll be fine. Asmoday announced that they'll be releasing an English version of Watson and Holmes. This is based off the game Watson and Holmes from the Diaries of 221 Baker Street, which is way too long of a name. So they're shortening it to just Watson and Holmes. It's a competitive deduction game where a lot of Sherlock games have been either solo or cooperative. This one, you're competing against other players. There have been a lot of Sherlock games lately. I don't know if it's kind of the new Cthulhu where it's a popular figure that's in the public domain, so it's really easy to make a Sherlock game. But I don't know. But this is going to have new graphic design as well as revisions to its cases, and it's going to come out in early 2017. Fantasy Flight announced the third expansion for Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, which is Mansions of Madness Beyond the Threshold. This is actually going to be the first expansion for the 2nd Edition that has new content. The first two expansions were kind of redoing content that existed in the 1st edition. This is going to have new characters, monsters, spells, weapons, objectives, afflictions, as well as 2 new scenarios. So Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition has been very popular and well received, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very excited about this one. This is kind of interesting news. WizKids is going to partner with Lookout Games, which is the European publisher of Agricola, to bring mini expansions to Agricola. There's going to be 6 upgrade kits, each containing a couple of new cards for the game, which is pretty normal, little promo cards and stuff. But they're also going to include 5 pre-painted figures, which I assume are going to be plastic, because they're coming from WizKids. And I assume, because they say each kit is for one of the players of the game, so if you have a 6-player game, you need to buy all 6 kits for everybody to have upgrades. I assume these are going to be your family. I think this is weird. I don't want plastic in my Agricola. I think the anime meeples are great. I think the look and feel is really great, and having a couple of plastic components would be weird to me. Maybe that's just me, but as kind of a Euro gamer at heart, that's my feelings. But it's definitely Zev, the namesake of Z-Man Games, who left Z-Man Games about a year ago, now works for WizKids. So this connection makes sense because Z-Man is the American producer of Agricola. So, yeah, interesting. I mean, I was reading a lot of comments, and most of them kind of felt the same way as I did, where it was like, I don't want painted plastic bits in Agricola, and I really like the wooden bits, but I'm sure that there are people out there, and they're clearly trying to reach a wider audience with Agricola, so maybe this will help do that. The Kickstarter this week is for Bluebeard's Bride. This is a beautiful indie RPG where everyone plays a different part of the psyche of Bluebeard's Bride from the Legend of Bluebeard. So you all play the same character kind of in different mind states as she goes around Bluebeard's house and like discovers horrors and secrets and stuff like that. It's like a gothic romance RPG. It's based around the Apocalypse World system, which is a very popular indie RPG system that I'm a big fan of. The artwork's gorgeous. You can get a really nice book. For $50, you get the core book as well as the PDFs for everything, but for more, you can get all these tarot cards and everything. I've been holding off on backing Kickstarters for the most part for a while. I've done a pretty good job, but this one I had to pull the trigger on because it's so unique and so beautiful that I was very interested in it. So if that sounds interesting to you as well, go back that. All right, that's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Bryan Games on Twitter and Instagram. And make sure you check out my Patreon if you have time. I would really appreciate it. All right, this week's question comes from @GameritisGuy, and they ask, barring time, family, work excuses, what's the biggest culprit in preventing a good board game from reaching your table? Getting players together, but I guess that kind of falls under that, but I would play a lot more board games if I could get players together more often, which is often a geographic struggle because I live about 45 minutes to an hour away from a lot of my game groups. So that's the challenge. But complexity of rules are a big hurdle for me because I'm not a huge fan of reading rules to learn games. So if there's not a good tutorial out there, that can keep a game from the table. Complexity to teach, if I can't feel like I can teach it, that's a huge hurdle. Length of the game, I usually play on weeknights. So if a game is more than about 3 hours, it's probably not hitting my table because I want to get it done. Yeah, those are probably the big ones. Cover art can be a hurdle. Like some of the old Euro games that I actually wind up loving from like 2010 that just have bad art, I'm just not that interested in playing them. And also the age of a game, and not so much the age, but how long I've owned the game. Like I think it's exponential. Like the longer I own a game, the less likely I am to play it if I haven't played it before. So I don't do this anymore that much. I used to blind buy games all the time because I was the main one in my group buying games, and I didn't have a lot of other outlets to try out games. Now I go to other game nights and stuff, so I usually have played a game a couple times before I buy it. But back in the day, a couple of years ago, I would just buy anything that seemed interesting. And some of those I've still never played. In years, I've never played them. So I feel bad selling them or trading them because I've never played them, but then I'm not going to play them because I'm like, that game's 3 years old. I just bought this game last week. This one's exciting. So yeah, those are probably my biggest hurdles in getting a game to the table. Thanks for asking that question, and I will see you next week.